Atrahasis, Tablet 2, page 76. 600 years, not even 600 years went by. The inhabited land sprawled and the people grew plentiful, and the inhabited land raised a howl like a bellowing bull. But the god was annoyed by all the noise that they made. Enlil had put up with all of their loud clamor and clatter. Enlil raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the high gods. The noise which is made by man has become too great. All of his clamor and clatter has kept me from my sleep. Now let us make it so the humans will be denied their food, so that growth will not be great enough to cure their hunger. Let it be so that in the heavens Adad will withhold his rain, and beneath no subterranean water will gush from springs. Cause the winds to be unleashed and rage, denuding the soil. Let there be clouds aloft in the sky, but which bring no rain. So the farmer's fields will yield hardly any crop to speak of. Let Nisaba hold back the nourishing flow from her breast. There are to be no blessings which are bestowed unto them, so that their lives will be wretched and filled with misery. Then the gods sent messengers to Adad to withhold his rain, to Nisaba to withhold the nourishing flow from her breast, and the winds were unleashed and raged, denuding the soil. There were clouds aloft in the sky, but they brought no rain, so the farmer's fields yielded hardly any crop to speak of. There were no blessings which were bestowed unto them, so that their lives became wretched and filled with misery. Atrahasis raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his lord. How long are we going to be beset by this terrible famine? Is it their intention that we bear this syndrome for all time? Enki raised his voice to be heard, speaking to his servant. Bring together the elders, gather to you the men of rank, so as to instigate a rebellion within your own community. Send out messengers to announce this within every district, and cause them to raise a loud cry throughout all lands, that you no longer will pay fitting homage to your gods, that you no longer beseech the favor of your goddesses, but rather find your way to the door of the rain god Adad, present him a loaf of baked bread, leave a flour offering, and let him feel his own shame upon receiving these gifts, so that he might remove from you his discredited hand. Atrahasis did as he was told, bringing the elders to his door, and he raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the elders. I have brought you together the elders and the men of rank, so as to instigate a rebellion within our own community. Send out messengers to announce this within every district, and cause them to raise a loud cry throughout all lands, that you no longer will pay fitting homage to your gods, that you no longer beseech the favor of your goddesses, but rather find your way to the door of the rain god Adad. Present him a loaf of baked bread, leave a flour offering, and let him feel his own shame upon receiving these gifts, that he might remove from off of us his discredited hand, to condense a misty haze that will appear in the morning. So during the night he will go and beckon droplets of dew as patron to restore the fruitfulness of the land ninefold. Thus they erected a temple in the city dedicated to Adad, sent out messengers to announce this within every district, and caused them to raise a loud cry throughout all lands. So they no longer would pay fitting homage to their gods, so they no longer beseeched the favor of their goddesses, but rather made their way to the door of the rain god Adad, presented him a loaf of baked bread, left a flour offering, such that he himself felt shame upon receiving these gifts, so that he removed from off of them his discredited hand, and condensed a misty haze that appeared in the morning. So during the night he went and beckoned droplets of dew as patron. He restored the fruitfulness of the land ninefold, so that the days of dryness passed, and the drought ended. Then after this, the gods received again their daily offerings. But in less than 3 periods of time, then it came to pass, the inhabited land sprawled and the people grew plentiful, and the inhabited land raised a howl like a bellowing bull. So the gods were bothered by all the noise that they made. Enlil raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the high gods. The noise which is made by man has become too great. All of his clamor and clatter has kept me from my sleep. Let it be that Anu and Adad shut the sky above their lands. let it be that Sin and Nergal still shut the middle region, and regarding the barrier which defines the limits of ocean, it will be for Ea and his Lamu men to ensure it's kept closed. So Anu and Adad went and shut the sky above their lands. Sin and Nergal assured that the seal secured the middle region, and regarding the barrier which defines the limits of ocean, Ea and his Lamu men assured that this too was kept closed, and that the men of great wisdom, Atrahasis, cried every day. He would walk the riverside grass with an incense offering. Even though there was not a murmur from the canal waters, still at midnight he dutifully made the sacrificial offering, and even as the lassitude of sleep was getting hold of him, still he spoke to the irrigation waters in the canal channels. May the irrigation waters carry it away, the river convey it. Let this gift offering find its way to the feet of my Lord Ea, so that when Ea looks upon it, that he will not forsake me, so that when I keep my might experience a portentous dream. After this, and he'd conveyed his package upon the waters, he sat down with his face to the river and began to weep. And the man cried as he remained by the side of the river. There he wept while looking over the surface of the waters. As his entreaty was making its way down into deep Apsu, and Ea heard what he had spoken, and having heeded him, he called together his Lamu men, addressing them thusly: Go and seek out the man who has sent his bequest to me, and when you find him, learn what plight has befallen him. Have him tell you everything which goes on in their lands. So they journeyed across the magnificently broad oceans until they went the entire way to the Apsu water shore, conveying to Atrahasis the message they brought from Ea. Are you the weeping man who sent his plea into the Apsu? Know that Ea has heard you and that we were sent by him. And Atrahasis raised his voice, speaking to the Lamu men. If it is true that Ea has heard me, then what did he receive? The Lamu men raised their voices, speaking to Atrahasis. We know that even as you were being overcome by sleep, the irrigation waters carried your gift, the river conveyed it, and your offering found its way to the feet of your Lord Ea. So when Ea looked upon it, he remembered you and sent us. He lowered himself to the ground and kissed it before them. Then the Lamu men went back across the rivers of ocean. Ea raised his voice to be heard, speaking to the officer Usmu. Go forth and seek out Atrahasis and convey my decision, that the state of your lands arises from the people's actions. And thus Usmu, Ea's officer, raised his voice to Atrahasis. The state of your lands is the result of the people's actions. If there is no water to speak of, and fields engender no longer, this has come about because there is very little that I can do. If the gods have abandoned you, this is why you are forsaken. The land is like a youth who has fallen down upon his face, and having fallen, no longer gets succor from the sky's teats. The land has fallen like a fig which is lying upon the ground. The teats of heaven are closed up and are not given to stream. The waters of the abyss below are dammed and will not flow. Thus for this have the dark plowed lands become blanched. From this the pastures lie fallow, unadorned by rising grain. So from on high no rain descended to fill the canal works. Below, subterranean waters no longer gushed from springs. There was no delivery which sprang from the earth's womb. Nothing green took root, and no plants grew into fruition. The folks no longer gazed over the bands of growing wheat. The black soil of the countryside have been blanched white. The landscape everywhere lay encrusted with a salty dust. For the first year they consumed any grain that was in the store. For the next there was none left to take from the storerooms. In the third year they were showing the signs of starvation, so that their faces were a matrix of sores like malted grain, and they remained alive only by clinging urgently on to life. Their faces became sunken. They walked bent over in public. Their shoulders, once steadfastly set, were now slouching. Their former bearing, once raised aloft, was now drooping. So they conveyed the message from Atrahasis to the gods, setting the matter forth before the gathering of the high gods. They convened, prepared to address the situation facing them. The words which had been sent by Atrahasis were conveyed, setting the matter forth before the gathering of the high gods. How long are we going to be beset by this terrible distress? Is it their intention that we bear this syndrome for all time? Then Enlil raised his voice, speaking to his children, the gods. No longer shall the diseases be unleashed upon mankind, though their numbers are no less, but are even greater still. Though I am just as annoyed by the racket that they make, and am yet unable to sleep from all their clamor and clatter. Then let us make it so that the humans will be denied their food. Make it so that there is not enough corn to fill their stomachs, and make it so that a dad in heaven will hold back his rains. Beneath will he act to assure waters do not gush from springs, so that the farmer's fields no longer produce in abundance. Let Nasaba hold back the nourishing flow from her breast, so the black soil of the countryside becomes blanched white. So the landscape everywhere is encrusted with a salty dust. Let earth deny her succor, so nothing grows, not even grain. Make it so that people are plagued by the horrible disease. Constrict the birth canal so as to deny a prosperous birth. Thus they made it so the humans would be denied their food, making it so there was not enough corn to fill their stomachs. Made it so that a dad in heaven would hold back his rains. Beneath he acted to assure waters did not gush from springs, so that the farmer's fields no longer produced in abundance. And Nasaba held back the nourishing flow from her breast, so the black soil of the countryside became blanched white. So the landscape everywhere lay encrusted with a salty dust, and the earth denied her succor, so nothing grew, not even grain. Made it so the people were plagued by the horrible disease, constricting the birth canal so as to deny a prosperous birth. Ea with his Lamu men were watchful at the bolt of the sea. On high, Adad made it so that his rains were in short supply. Below, subterranean waters no longer gushed from springs, so that the farmer's fields no longer produced in abundance, and Nasaba held back the nourishing flow from her breast. Peace and blessings to you all.